Hello and welcome to another edition of Business Africa. I am Afolake Oyiloye. The week's top stories. Despite reduction in cost of remittance transaction, the African market remains the most expensive. We'll find out more on this edition. Citizens of South Sudan spend up to 95% of their income on food amid crisis. And Taxify lowers Uber drivers with larger share of the fare. A new report by the International Fund for Agricultural Development has revealed that since 2011, Africa has had the largest reduction in remittance transaction costs. Notwithstanding, the African market remains the most expensive for remittances on the global average. In the following report, William Baye and Mike Dibie take interest on the reasons for the reduction.
Fees for remitting money vary widely between providers and countries. However, moving money between African countries can cost much more. For example, sending money to Tanzania from neighboring Kenya or Rwanda costs an average of 22%. However, it is cheaper to send $200 to Africa today than it was in 2011. According to a new report by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, since 2011, Africa has seen the largest reduction in cost of remittance transactions. Despite the reduction, the African market remains the most expensive for remittances and costs are higher than the global average. The 14.6% cost to remit $200 in Southern Africa is the highest in the world. The high cost as a result of the prevalence of cash transactions with poor infrastructure and a lack of competitors locally, making it a preferred option. For example, the cost of remitting $200 in Southern Africa is 14.6%, East Africa is 10.8%, Middle Africa is 10.2%, Western Africa 7.9%, global average 7.45%, and Northern Africa 6.4%. Despite the high cost, African countries received around $600 billion in remittances last year. Nigeria, Egypt, and Morocco accounted for more than half of the remittances to the continent in 2016.
As a result of almost uninterrupted civil war since December 2013, with inflation reaching record levels in South Sudan, the price of basic food items have skyrocketed in South Sudan's capital Juba and other towns across the country. Let's hear more from Michael Oduwo and Selch Kofi.
South Sudanese continue to decry daily hikes of food prices despite government's recent tax exemption amid a dire economic meltdown. Most urban poor people are spending up to 95% of their income on food, having an enormous impact on their food security. The current prices are very high, much more than in the previous years. I came today with £6,000, but watch, the shopping cart is not even complete, and it has cost me over £6,000. I received my last salary in January, but nothing in February, nothing in March or April, nor even May, and we are now in June. Experts say that prices of commodities countrywide are increasing on a daily basis, and this has negatively impacted on the poor people, leaving a majority of them unable to afford food for their families. World Food Programme's latest market monitoring bulletin reports that the macroeconomic crisis and hyperinflation continue to affect households' purchasing power. Shortages and depreciation of local currency, coupled with rising cereal prices and shortages of imported commodities in local markets, are affecting food security of households and increasing vulnerability. Currently, the prices have tripled. The flour has increased from £600 to £1,500. It has increased too much, but not just a little. We now request assistance from God. The UN says that nearly half the country's population of about 5.5 million people is expected to lack food by July this year. The National Bureau of Statistics indicated that the overall year-to-year inflation rate and food inflation rate in April 2017 stood at 272.6% and 267.5% respectively. The price of sorghum and white maize drastically increased and cost up to 8 times more than the same time last year.
Taxify is set to take on giant Uber in taxi business. Stay with us for the details.